I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My daughter walked into my living room with papers in her hand and said, "Mom, I need you to sign these. It's just paperwork for your safety." I trusted her. I signed without reading. 3 days later, my bank account was empty. $340,000 gone. But what she didn't know was that I'd been a forensic accountant for 30 years before I retired, and I was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. My name is Dorothy Harrison, and I'm 67 years old. I live in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house in Riverside, the same house where I raised my daughter, Jessica, after my husband died when she was just 8 years old. I worked 2 jobs back then, putting myself through night school to become an accountant, climbing my way up until I became a forensic accountant for the state, investigating fraud cases. I retired 5 years ago with a comfortable nest egg, not wealthy by any means, but secure, or so I thought. Jessica was my world. After losing her father so young, we became incredibly close. Mother and daughter, yes, but also best friends, or at least that's what I believed. She grew up watching me work hard, watching me build a life from nothing. I thought I taught her about integrity, about earning what you have. I was wrong. Jessica married Kyle Morrison 7 years ago. He worked in tech sales, the kind of job with a big title but inconsistent commissions. Jessica had a degree in marketing but jumped from job to job, never quite finding her footing. They lived in expensive condo in the city, drove matching luxury SUVs, took tropical vacations twice a year. Every time I visited, there was something new: a renovated kitchen, designer furniture, the latest gadgets. "Business is good," Kyle would say with that practiced smile. "Jessica's consulting work is really taking off." I wanted to believe them. What mother doesn't want to believe her child is successful? But I'd spent 30 decades spotting financial red flags, and their lifestyle sent up flares I chose to ignore. Because they were family, because Jessica was my baby girl, because questioning them felt like I didn't trust her. The signs were there if I'd wanted to see them. Jessica started calling more often, always with casual questions. "Mom, where do you bank again? Have you thought about estate planning? Do you have a financial advisor? What happens to your money if something happens to you?" I thought she was being responsible, thinking ahead, planning for my future care like a good daughter should. How naive I was. Then came the visits. Every weekend suddenly. Jessica and Kyle would drop by with takeout, stay for hours, ask about my week, my health, my finances. "Mom, you're 67 now," Jessica said one Sunday evening as we sat in my living room. "Have you thought about what would happen if you got sick? What if you needed long-term care?" "I'm healthy as a horse," I laughed. "I do yoga 3 times a week. I volunteer at the community center." "But accidents happen," Kyle interjected, his voice all concern. "My aunt had a fall last year. One minute she's fine, the next she's in assisted living, cleaned out her savings in 8 months. They planted seeds of fear so carefully I didn't even notice the garden growing. What if I fell? What if I got dementia? What if I needed care and had no one to help? Jessica started sending me articles about elder care costs, about nursing homes, about the importance of having a healthcare proxy and power of attorney. "You need someone you trust to make decisions if you can't," she'd say. "Someone who has your best interests at heart. Someone like me, Mom." It made sense. It all made perfect sense. Jessica was my only child. She was responsible, educated, married. Who else would I trust with such important decisions? So when she came over that Tuesday afternoon in late September with a folder of documents, I didn't hesitate. "Mom, I had a lawyer draw up some paperwork," she said, spreading forms across my kitchen table. "Just standard stuff. healthcare proxy, durable power of attorney, beneficiary updates. It's all very normal. Everyone your age should have this. The documents looked official, legal letterhead, dense paragraphs of text, signature lines highlighted with yellow sticky tabs. Sign here and here and here, Jessica guided me, her finger moving quickly across the pages. Should I read these first? I asked, reaching for my reading glasses. Mom, it's like 40 pages of legal jargon. I already went through everything with the attorney. It's just protecting you, protecting your assets, making sure I can help you if you need it. Don't you trust me? That question, don't you trust me? How do you tell your daughter you want to read legal documents before signing them without implying you don't trust her? How do you question the child you raised without destroying the relationship? So I signed every page she indicated. My daughter watched me sign away my financial security, and I smiled at her while I did it. There, I said, handing back the pen. All done. Thank you for taking care of this, sweetheart. She hugged me tight. Anything for you, Mom. I just want to make sure you're protected. 3 days later, I went to the bank to pay my quarterly property taxes. The payment was declined. Confused, I asked the teller to check my balance. She looked at her screen, frowned, typed something else, then looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Ma'am, your account shows a balance of $247. The world tilted. That's impossible. I had over $340,000 in that account. Let me print your recent transaction history. The teller's voice had gone soft, pitying. She knew something was very wrong. The printout showed 3 massive wire transfers, all made 4 days ago, the day after I signed Jessica's papers. $115,000 to an account I didn't recognize, $125,000 to another unknown account, $100,000 to a third. My life savings divided and transferred in 3 transactions. I didn't authorize these, I said, my voice shaking. Someone stole my money. According to our records, these transfers were initiated by your authorized power of attorney, a Jessica Morrison. We have documentation on file. Jessica, my daughter, the papers I'd signed. Oh God, what had I done? I drove home in a daze, barely seeing the road. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for 20 minutes, just breathing, trying to process what had happened. Jessica had stolen from me. My own daughter had manipulated me, lied to me, forged documents or tricked me into signing real ones, and stolen everything I'd worked my entire life to save. $340,000 gone. But what she didn't know was that I'd been a forensic accountant for 30 years before I retired, and I was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. When I went inside, I made myself a cup of tea with shaking hands and sat down to my computer. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something cold and clear. Anger, determination, and the professional instinct that had served me for 30 decades. If Jessica thought she could steal from me and get away with it, she was about to learn exactly who her mother really was. I pulled out the documents I'd signed, the ones Jessica had left with me. For your records, she'd said. Now I read every word, and what I found made my blood run cold. The power of attorney was real, legally binding, and gave Jessica complete control over my financial accounts. But there was more. Buried in the documents was a healthcare directive that gave her authority to make all medical decisions for me, including the power to have me declared incompetent, and a document I'd somehow missed or that she'd slipped in among the others that transferred my house into a joint tenancy with right of survivorship. If something happened to me, everything would go directly to Jessica, bypassing probate, impossible to contest. She hadn't just stolen my savings, she'd positioned herself to take everything: my home, my remaining assets, my autonomy. And the healthcare directive meant she could potentially have me institutionalized if I fought back, declared incompetent, locked away while she sold everything I owned. The plan was sophisticated, too sophisticated for Jessica alone. This had Kyle written all over it, the tech sales guy with the big title and the expensive lifestyle. I pulled out my laptop and did what I did best. I started investigating. It took me 6 hours, but I'm very good at what I do. I found the 3 accounts where my money had been transferred. All were newly opened, all in Jessica's name, all at different banks. Classic money laundering technique: divide assets to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts. One account already showed a large withdrawal, $50,000, taken out the same day it was deposited. I accessed public records next. Jessica and Kyle's condo, which they claimed to own, was actually rented. Their matching luxury SUVs were both leased. I found credit card judgments, collection notices, a pattern of debt that painted a very different picture from their Instagram perfect life. Then I found the bankruptcy. Kyle had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 4 years ago, before he married Jessica. Debts totaling $180,000 discharged. Credit cards, personal loans, a failed business venture. He'd walked away from nearly $200,000 in debt, and apparently he learned nothing. I dug deeper. Kyle had a DUI from 3 years ago, expensive legal fees he'd never fully paid. Jessica had been fired from her last 2 jobs, not quit as she told me. I found the court records: one termination for falsifying expense reports, another for violating the company's ethics policy. My daughter had been stealing long before she stole from me. The picture became clear. Jessica and Kyle were drowning in debt, living a lifestyle they couldn't afford, and they decided their salvation lay in my bank account. They'd planned this for months, maybe longer. The concerned visits, the careful questions, the fear tactics about my health and safety, all of it calculated to get me to sign over control of my finances, and I had fallen for it completely. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd stolen from someone who knew exactly how to build a fraud case, and I was about to build the strongest case of my career. I picked up my phone and called someone I'd hoped I'd never need: Marcus Webb, FBI White Collar Crime Division. We'd worked together on several cases during my career. "Marcus," I said when he answered, "I need your help. I've been the victim of elder financial exploitation, and I have evidence." Marcus arrived at my house the next morning with a female agent named Sarah Patel. I'd spent the entire night documenting everything: timeline, documents, bank records, screenshots, transaction histories, everything laid out like the fraud case it was. "Dorothy," Marcus said as he reviewed my files, "this is incredibly detailed. Most victims don't have a fraction of this documentation. Most victims aren't forensic accountants. Marcus, they didn't just take my savings. Look at these documents. This is a comprehensive plan to take everything I own, including the ability to have me institutionalized if I resist." Sarah studied the healthcare directive, her expression darkening. "This is elder abuse, financial exploitation combined with a framework for false imprisonment. If they'd succeeded in having you declared incompetent, I'd be in a nursing home while they sold my house and spent every penny I have. I know. That's why I need your help." Marcus made some calls. Within 3 hours, freezes were placed on all 3 accounts Jessica had transferred money to. Not seizures yet, just freezes, pending investigation. Then came the hard part. "Marcus, we need you to confront her, recorded, with consent if you're in a 2-party consent state, or without if you're not. We need her to admit what she did." I can do that. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The shock had burned away, leaving only cold determination. I called Jessica that evening. "Sweetheart, can you come by tomorrow? I need to talk to you about something." "Of course, Mom. Is everything okay?" Her voice was so normal, so concerned, like she hadn't just robbed me blind. "I just need your help with some paperwork, bank stuff." "I'll be there at 2. After I hung up, I prepared. Marcus and Sarah helped me set up recording equipment, hidden cameras in my living room. If Jessica was going to confess, we'd have every word, every expression documented. She arrived right on time, looking polished and put together in expensive clothes I now knew she couldn't afford. "Hi, Mom," she said brightly, kissing my cheek. "What's going on with the bank?" I gestured to the couch. "Sit down, Jessica. We need to talk." Something in my tone made her hesitate, but she sat. I remained standing, positioned where the hidden camera would capture both of us. "I went to pay my property taxes this week. My payment was declined. Do you know why?" "Oh no, that's terrible. Did you call the bank?" "Sometimes there are system glitches." "My account has $247 in it, Jessica, down from $340,000. Where did my money go?" Her face went pale, then recovered. The mask slipped back into place. "What? That's impossible. There must be some mistake. Let me help you sort this out." I have the transaction records, 3 wire transfers, all authorized by you using the power of attorney I signed. $340,000 transferred to 3 different accounts, all in your name. The silence stretched between us. I watched my daughter's face cycle through expressions: shock, fear, calculation, and finally, defiance. "You signed those papers willingly," she said, her voice harder now. "I gave you power of attorney. I was managing your money for you, protecting it. By transferring it all to your personal accounts, that's not protection, that's theft." "It's not theft. You're getting older, Mom. You're forgetting things. I've noticed them for months. You need help managing your finances. I was consolidating everything to keep it safe." "I'm not forgetting anything," my daughter said. "I'm 67, not 97, and I'm not incompetent." I pulled out the bank statements. "You took $50,000 out of one of these accounts already. What was that for, Jessica? What emergency required $50,000 of my money?" She stood up, angry now. "After everything I've done for you, after all the years I've spent worrying about you, taking care of you, making sure you're okay, and this is how you thank me, by accusing me of theft?" "Prove me wrong," I said quietly. "Show me where that money is. Explain why you needed to transfer $340,000 into your personal accounts to protect it. Make it make sense, Jessica." She grabbed her purse, her face flushed with anger, and something else, fear. "I don't have to explain anything. You gave me power of attorney. The money is in my name now, legally. If you have a problem with that, talk to a lawyer, but good luck paying for one." She headed for the door, then turned back. "You know what, Mom? Maybe you are losing it. Maybe I should be looking into care facilities for you, someplace where you can get the help you obviously need." The threat was clear: play along or I'll have you institutionalized. I almost smiled. She had no idea what she'd just done. "Get out of my house, Jessica." She laughed, slamming the door behind her. I stood in my living room, listening to her car drive away, and felt something settle in my chest. Not quite peace, but purpose. Marcus and Sarah emerged from my bedroom, where they'd been monitoring everything. "We got it all," Marcus said. "That's enough for charges." "No," I said, "not yet. I want to know where all the money went. I want to understand the full scope of what they did. Can you help me with that?" Sarah nodded. "Give us 48 hours. Those 48 hours were the longest of my life. I stayed in my house, jumping at every sound, half expecting Jessica to return with commitment papers or worse. But I wasn't helpless. I'd installed extra locks, security cameras, and I had Marcus's number on speed dial. I also did something else. I called my friends. Not many people knew what had happened yet, but I reached out to my book club, my yoga class, the volunteer coordinator at the community center. I didn't want to be isolated. I needed witnesses to my competence, my stability, my complete and total mental clarity. Dorothy, that's horrible, my friend Susan gasped when I told her. Your own daughter? I need you to document everything, I told her. Every conversation we have, every activity we do together. If Jessica tries to claim I'm incompetent, I need proof that I'm not. My friends rallied. They created a schedule, making sure someone was with me or in contact with me every day. They took photos, kept notes, built a wall of evidence that I was perfectly capable of managing my own life. 2 days later, Marcus and Sarah returned with a folder full of documents. What they'd found was worse than I'd imagined. The $50,000 withdrawal, Sarah said, went to a luxury car dealership. Kyle bought a Tesla, paid in cash. The rest of the money is still in the accounts, but there are scheduled payments, credit card debt, medical bills, legal fees. They were planning to drain everything slowly, paying off their debts over time. Marcus handed me another document. This is the concerning part. They already contacted an assisted living facility, put down a deposit for a room in your name. The plan was to have you declared incompetent, institutionalize you, sell your house, and use the proceeds to fund their lifestyle while you lived in state-funded care. The room spun. They were going to lock me away, put me in a facility, take my house, spend my money, and leave me to rot in some nursing home paid for by Medicaid once my assets were gone. We found something else, Sarah added quietly. Text messages between Jessica and Kyle, planning this for over a year, discussing how to manipulate you, what to say, how to make you doubt yourself. It's all documented. Can I see them? Sarah hesitated, then handed me her tablet. I read through months of messages. My daughter and her husband plotting me, to rob me, discussing me like I was a problem to solve rather than a person. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Kyle, just keep pushing the incompetent angle. Get her to doubt herself. Jessica, she's so trusting. This is going to be easy. Kyle, once we have the money, we'll deal with the house, 6 months in a facility, and we can sell it out from under her. Jessica, what if she fights it? Kyle, she won't, and if she does, we'll get a doctor to sign off on dementia. Who are they going to believe, her loving daughter or some crazy old woman? I read through dozens of messages, each one a knife to my heart. This wasn't a desperate decision made in a moment of weakness. This was premeditated, calculated elder abuse. I want to press charges, I said, my voice steady despite the tears on my face. All of them, everything you can throw at them. The arrests happened 3 days later. FBI agents showed up at Jessica and Kyle's condo at 6 a.m. with a warrant. They were charged with elder financial exploitation, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Federal charges because the wire transfers cross state lines. Jessica called me from jail, sobbing. Mom, please, this is all a misunderstanding. I was trying to help you. Please drop the charges. I'm your daughter. I'm your baby girl. I stopped being my daughter when you stole from me, when you planned to lock me away and steal my life. Mom, please. I hung up. Kyle's parents posted their bail, $100,000 each. They were released pending trial, but the damage was done. Their condo management company evicted them for the arrest. Kyle's employer fired him. Jessica's face was all over the local news. Daughter accused of stealing from elderly mother. The court froze all the assets they'd stolen, pending resolution of the criminal case. But here's what Jessica and Kyle didn't anticipate: the civil case. I hired the best attorney I could find, Diane Ramirez, who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Dorothy, you have one of the strongest cases I've ever seen. The evidence is overwhelming. We can sue for the return of your funds, punitive damages, emotional distress, legal fees, everything." "Do it," I said. "I want them to understand that stealing from me was the worst decision they ever made." The lawsuit filed the same week as the criminal charges. Jessica and Kyle tried to fight it, but they had no defense. The evidence was irrefutable. Their own text messages convicted them. 3 months later, we went to trial for the civil case. The criminal trial was still pending, but civil cases move faster. I sat in that courtroom and watched my daughter testify, watched her try to claim she was protecting me, that I'd been confused, that she'd had my best interests at heart. Then Diane played the recordings, Jessica threatening to have me institutionalized, the text messages planning to rob me, the bank records showing the Tesla purchase, the assisted living deposit. Every piece of evidence was another nail in their coffin. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. They found in my favor on every count. The judge ordered Jessica and Kyle to return every penny they'd stolen, plus $500,000 in punitive damages, plus legal fees, a judgment totaling nearly $900,000. "Good luck collecting," Kyle muttered as they left the courtroom. But I'd spent 30 years tracking assets. I knew exactly where to look. Their lawsuit judgments, their hidden accounts, Kyle's parents' money that posted their bail. Diane filed liens, froze accounts, garnished wages. We'd collect every penny eventually, even if it took years. The criminal trial came 4 months later. Jessica and Kyle both took plea deals to avoid federal prison time, 3 years probation, restitution, community service, and permanent marks on their records. Jessica's lawyer tried to paint her as a desperate daughter who made a mistake, but the prosecution showed the jury those text messages, that year of planning. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated attack on a vulnerable senior by people she trusted most. Jessica cried through the entire sentencing. I sat in the front row and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness where my daughter used to be. But life goes on. With the criminal case resolved and my money returned, I did something I'd been planning for months. I started a nonprofit, the Harrison Foundation for Elder Financial Protection. We provide free legal assistance to seniors facing financial exploitation, education about scams and manipulation tactics, and support groups for victims. My first client was a 73-year-old woman whose son had done almost exactly what Jessica had done to me. I helped her build her case, connected her with law enforcement, held her hand through the legal process. When she got her money back, she hugged me and cried, "Thank you for showing me I wasn't alone." You're not. None of us are. The foundation grew. I recruited other retired forensic accountants, lawyers, investigators. We became known as the people who helped when families betrayed their elders. The local news did a story on us, then the national news. Suddenly, I was getting calls from all over the country. I sold my house, the one Jessica had tried to steal. Too many memories, too much pain. I bought a smaller condo near downtown, modern and secure, with a doorman and cameras everywhere. I renovated it exactly how I wanted, and I felt safe for the first time in over a year. My book club friends became my real family: Susan, Margaret, Diane, and Paula. We met twice a week now, not just for books, but for friendship. They'd stood by me through everything, witnessed my competence when Jessica tried to paint me as incompetent. I started dating again, nothing serious, just coffee and conversation with a retired detective named Robert who understood what betrayal felt like. We took things slow, enjoyed each other's company without pressure. And I thrived. The foundation became my purpose, my legacy. Every senior we helped, every family we stopped from destroying itself, every dollar we recovered felt like redemption. Not for Jessica, she'd made her choices, but for me, proof that I was exactly who I'd always been: strong, capable, and unbreakable. Jessica reached out once about 8 months after the trial, an email, carefully worded, probably reviewed by her lawyer. Mom, I know I can never undo what I did. I know I hurt you in ways I can never repair. I'm in therapy now, working on myself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for money. I just want you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden angles, for anything that suggested it wasn't genuine. Maybe it was. Maybe she really was sorry. But sorry doesn't give me back the year I spent trusting her while she plotted against me. Sorry doesn't erase those text messages. Sorry doesn't rebuild a relationship built on a foundation of theft and betrayal. I never responded. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt, and maybe that's okay. Today, 2 years after Jessica stole my life savings, I'm sitting in my condo office looking at the wall where I've hung thank you letters from the 47 seniors we've helped recover over $2 million in stolen funds. The Harrison Foundation has a full-time staff now. We're expanding to 3 more cities next year. My daughter tried to destroy me, to steal my security, to lock me away and take everything I'd worked my entire life to build. Instead, she gave me a purpose. She showed me that I was stronger than I'd ever known. She taught me that family isn't always blood, and that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones you choose, not the ones you're related to. Do I miss her? Sometimes. I miss who I thought she was, the daughter I believed I'd raised. But that person never really existed. The real Jessica was someone who could look her mother in the eye and smile while robbing her blind. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Jessica and Kyle divorced. The stress of the legal battles, the debt, the shame destroyed their marriage. Jessica moved back in with her father's sister, my former sister-in-law, who took her in despite everything. Kyle moved to another state, trying to escape his past. They're both rebuilding their lives, I suppose, paying off the judgment in small monthly installments that will take them decades to complete, living with the consequences of their choices. And I'm rebuilding too, but from a position of strength, surrounded by people who genuinely care about me. So that's my story. My daughter forged my signature, stole my life savings, and tried to have me institutionalized, but I fought back. I used every skill I'd learned in 30 years as a forensic accountant to expose her fraud, recover my money, and make sure she faced real consequences. Some people say I was too hard on her, that family should forgive, that she was desperate and made a mistake. But this wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are impulsive, regrettable actions. This was a year-long conspiracy to rob me of my money, my home, my freedom, and my dignity. What would you have done in my position? If your own child betrayed you this completely, would you press charges? Would you sue? Or would you forgive and move on? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and if my story resonated with you, if you or someone you know has faced elder financial exploitation, please share this video. The more people who understand the warning signs, the more seniors we can protect. If you want to hear more stories about fighting back against betrayal, about standing up for yourself even when it costs you everything, subscribe to my channel. And remember, you're never too old to fight for what's yours, you're never too vulnerable to defend yourself, and you're never alone. Thank you for listening to my story.